Sabrina the Animated Series, Episode 13. It starts with a kid somehow hearing Quigley sing in the shower from all the way in the front of her house. And Salem says just a little cold water therapy from a music lover. So Quigley complains that he turned off the hot water. Zelda gets a call, and Quigley says he hates living in a house with teenage girls, which would confuse anyone watching this, as this is the first time it establishes that her aunts are inexplicably teenagers. Eventually, Sabrina gets a prank call and uses a magical artifact for caller ID. Chloe lampshades for no reason that she should get normal caller ID. She was using a weird voice to call people. It turns out Sabrina's running for class president. When you're older, you know how stupid it is of her to think she could make any changes. Of course, the faculty wouldn't let a student change the school in a way that really matters. Even the sitcom gave out that lesson. Salem causes food to fall on Sabrina, and Quigley's told he's not nice for chasing Salem with the vacuum. And Salem asks to hang on curtains. He says he was forced to sleep outside last night, and it's because Quigley was punishing him for having a furball he couldn't help. More moments of him being a jerk. Salem plans to go to the netherworld. Why can't he do that unsupervised? Sabrina says she can't become class president because there's a requirement to be normal. She says that if people are going to like her enough to vote for her, she has to be normal. But nobody knows she's a witch and nobody will find out. So why is she whining? Jem's running for class president, go figure. I skip ahead out of boredom, and I like that if you skip ahead 30 seconds, Sabrina says off to Jem, like she told her to fuck off. And then later, the episode forces you to listen to Harvey's friend's voice for way too long. Chloe tells Sabrina that she's cool, and Sabrina plans to spread rumors about Jem. I hope we see her reaction to it. She complains about getting Zelda's salad and says anchovies make her gag right behind Jem. I assume Jem's going to take advantage of this now, which is totally forced, because she won't say this because Chloe would already know that about her. Then Harvey reads in the school newspaper that there's an article about how weird Sabrina's house is from the kid at the start of the episode. Somehow Sabrina's behind people in the polls who aren't even running. This episode is just way too mean. Why would the students care about how weird Sabrina's house is? That doesn't make her weird. Harvey somehow says, "You call this normal?" when he's supposed to be your nice friend. And after the commercial break, he reassures her and says she's normal. He tries to unlock the door, and Sabrina tells Salem to do a magical transport zap to get her friends to the back door. She also says she'll reward him for a month if he does. Why is she so desperate to conserve magic she'll make him do this? Also, these kids would have heard her spell from just outside the door if Harvey could be heard from the inside. They're naturally confused, and somehow the kid's dizzy with everything out of focus. Why don't they figure out magic exists? They're confused, so it's not like their brains were rewritten so that they thought they went to the back door. And why won't they hear everything Sabrina's telling Hilda? Hilda gives her rose-colored glasses to brainwash one of the kids into seeing everything in the house as normal. A different function from how it was in the 70s cartoon. Why can't any witches think to point to cast a spell so that everyone will see them as normal? When Harvey says, "Great idea, Jane," and says they should visit Sabrina in the living room, it literally comes off like he's intentionally warning Sabrina that they're gonna go there, because he emphasized Jane and living room. So Sabrina gets to keep them from seeing stereotypical witches and push them out of the house. The kid says she's still on Jem's payroll. Sabrina decides to go with Hilda to the mall. She stands on an escalator and sees a picture of her and backs away. Why doesn't Sabrina tell Hilda why she was acting panicked when she gets called a wacko? Hilda says Jem's just jealous of her because she's awesome, even though she would have no reason to think that at this point. Jane thinks that Harvey's friend's trivia about Beatles is amazing. Sabrina starts coughing because of the anchovy pizza Jem sent to her. Eventually, someone unrealistically laughs evilly after Jem bribes her. She goes after Sabrina with perfume and sprays her. Why is the kid writing stuff down after Sabrina gets sprayed with perfume? If the whole thing is that the glasses are making her see everything as normal, there's no point in constantly showing us or writing it down, like we're gonna forget that. We're just gonna wonder if the glasses aren't working and be even more frustrated. The tension isn't as stressful as it could be because of those glasses. Jem throws tacks on the floor to make Hilda freak out and start falling. Sabrina says Jem's gone too far and uses magic to make Harvey trip and walk out of the store with clothes on him. And he gets immediately arrested for shoplifting. She wouldn't waste time trying to talk sense into the guard. She just brainwashed him right away, because the show proves she's fine with that. Harvey's friend shows up with a piece of paper with a drawing of what happened to Harvey. Realistically, he would have been immediately told to look at security camera footage of what happened instead. Jem gets made to run away scared by a perfume salesman. And Sabrina finds out she didn't win the election because Jane thought Sabrina was boring, and the winner of the election was Harvey's friend. Sabrina preaches to the audience that he won because he's never afraid to be himself. But if Jem won Student of the Year because she did some bribery, why didn't she win in this episode for the same reason? Harvey's friend winning is a narrative cheat because Sabrina kept talking as if weird kids don't have a chance of being elected. And there's no foreshadowing to the idea that most kids in her school would want a weird kid elected. Chloe told Sabrina that she's behind in the polls to a ridiculous degree right after she read an article exposing a bit about how weird her family is. So the real moral of the story is, weird kids always get elected class president, as long as they're guys. Well, at least it didn't end with her resigning because she feels bad about spreading rumors about Jem. That'd been too predictable. It can't be that nobody likes Jem, because then she wouldn't have gotten voted Student of the Year. This episode's about a kid following Sabrina around in the mall, writing down things about her to influence people wanting to vote for the class president. But because Hilda gave her magic glasses to make her think everything about Sabrina is normal, she realistically gets called boring. But the ending has a weird kid win anyways, which makes no sense if Sabrina was unpopular in the polls for being weird. And he would definitely be more unpopular. It needed to have someone explain that he won because only guys are liked for being weird. Just his annoying voice alone makes it impossible to buy that anybody would have voted for him. So it's not even that he's weird in the right ways and she's weird in the makes you pity her ways. The episode's got two messages. That it can be good to be weird, which is a good message, and that you shouldn't try and make people think you're normal. Even though if you don't try, there could be terrible consequences like harassment for being weird. So the message is actually dangerous. The entire episode had Sabrina be antagonized by Jem because she thinks she's weird. And she loses, so it's not convincing for either message. It doesn't make Hilda and Chloe look right about calling her cool this time, because instead of her being successful because of her witchcraft, proving that it's good to be weird, the episode has Harvey get framed because of it. And it's another episode that demonizes magic in the end, because the glasses that decrease the tension still manage to screw Sabrina over. So it looks like it's bad for her to be different. Sabrina the Animated Series, Episode 14. Harvey of the Community Talent Show plans to put a magic act on for an audience. It's lame that he says he knows none of this Harvey someone speaks about. He's handed a wristwatch and hits it with a hammer, and we can hear glass break. So it's needlessly sad that Sabrina and her family aren't in the audience waiting to save his magic show from failure. And instead they and Chloe are in a ridiculous band behind a curtain. It seems so out of character of them. I don't know who one of those women is, but I don't like her voice. Predictably, Harvey ruined the watch and is booed off stage. It's not even new for Harvey to be bad at magic tricks. There's nothing enjoyable about the rest of the talent show. There's no way Sabrina would think she's got good lyrics and singing talent and music talent. Even the flowers die somehow. There's no excuse for making the audience listen to this. You're supposed to have them sound only mediocre. The principal wisely unplugs it, and somehow one of the band expects to get prize money. Why was Jem written to be the winner? There could have been other participants, and there should have been. Chloe asks Sabrina to use magic to give them star quality. Zelda's moral enough to say no magic, but doesn't explain what I just did, so of course she won't be convinced. Harvey asks if he heard the word magic, but just reminds him he's a magician, and conveniently walks away as if he never heard their conversation. Obvious padding. Everyone in the band tries to pressure Zelda, and she describes the life of a rock star and asks how quickly they'd get tired of that. They aren't convinced, so she said she's in, making it hypocritical every time she says no magic, and ends up reading from the spell book. Earlier on, Sabrina said Zelda doesn't want magic used frivolously, so I wish someone called her out on the fact that she constantly uses magic frivolously. Not only are they made good at music, but instantly their house is surrounded by screaming, adoring fans. Wouldn't it be forced if Quigley wasn't in the episode? Not that it would be a problem, it would just make no sense. So the story wastes our time until they're about to play at a concert. I think it's gonna matter when Chloe plays from a trumpet. Aside from an awkward silence, it doesn't matter, and Sabrina starts a lame song. I have to assume people are being brainwashed into liking it. She sings about what's your favorite flavor and cotton candy. At least that's better than singing or rapping about how crime is awesome and you're cool if you do it like songs now. But it's a blatant waste of the audience's time to have a song, especially one with 2 verses. It's obvious there wasn't enough actual plot written. Now I have time to wonder why there's a spell like this in the spell book. I have to assume the Witches' Council is just that cavalier about magic. They really don't mind if witches make themselves famous rock stars, even though it's not fair. It should be explained that they know it doesn't matter because they think that every time the witches will get tired of having to constantly avoid fans, and will end up giving it up and making people forget all about it anyways. But you'd think they would have the same assumption for the skateboarding spell. So why was that spell temporary? It's obvious padding that the song replays while we see a montage of them avoiding people. And then there's a blatantly wasted time music video. I assume none of this ever happens because it's just nonsensical. The sitcom did an episode just like this, but it didn't waste tons of time playing an annoying song over a ton of it, while showing you nothing but the typical stuff. Unless it did and it was just that forgettable that I forgot about it. Salem shows them more merchandise, and Hilda licks a doll resembling her and says it doesn't taste like her flavor. And why is there another music video from a hideous guy who has a monotone singing video, with singing in sarcastic quotation marks? It has nothing to do with the main characters. Sabrina asks Chloe if she said she could switch the TV channel, and they keep saying switch and switch back. Sabrina realizes they shouldn't argue like this because they're acting like kids. Chloe goes from agreeing with her to saying they are kids, so they go back to arguing. Why don't they watch TV in separate rooms if they have different tastes? Harvey shows up and tells them Jem got caught passing notes with someone lame. Somehow Sabrina thinks it wasn't worth it that he came here to tell them that, when she'd obviously be happy that Jem got in trouble. He says he came here to chill, and she tells him to take up ice skating. That's out of character. He's written to say they're just cool for girls. I'm waiting for it to be explained that them acting narcissistic and selfish, as Zelda explains, is forced on them by the spell. That was the case with the sitcom too. Why is the episode annoying the audience with even more of Chloe and Sabrina's selfish bickering? Also, why aren't the ants affected? I don't care about anything these two are saying. Chloe says she's so out of here and leaves. Sabrina says she's got 3 words: solo career. That's how dumb the show makes her to force morals on her. Zelda reveals they gave up their magic to be musicians for a few days. And somehow it's revealed that if the band's still broken up after a few days, they'll be stuck in this alternate reality without getting their powers back. There's no way the spell would be made like this. The world would remain unfairly altered. Which you would think the witches that disapprove of talent spells enough to curse them would never want to happen. Depending on how rare witches are on Earth, it would always be stuck in a state where there's former witch rock stars that just became famous, since there'd constantly be witches who try out the spell. If there are tons of witch families on Earth, that means a significant chunk of its rock bands are always former witches. We get shown by someone that each of them went for unsuccessful solo careers, because they're desperate to prove their ego is warranted. Chloe became part of a metal band and accidentally blew up a drummer off screen in a kids' show. Chloe goes to Sabrina, and the two of them keep saying they want their stuff back. It's so annoying. Sabrina tells her to forget her locker combination, like she could do that. I don't care if someone's your friend, you should never tell them your locker combination. And the show should tell the audience that's a bad idea. That's no better than telling someone your password. They look sad, which makes it make sense when they reconcile so easily. Sabrina just says she wants her best friend back, and she easily agrees and they hug. Too bad the show hasn't done anything so far to make me support their friendship. Chloe's either been interchangeable with Harvey, redundant with Sabrina, or the writer forced her to bicker with her. I'd like her to be a deep, interesting character who has tons of good times with her. Sabrina says she wants to say how psyched they are that they're all back together again. I never stopped to notice how unemotional she is. The spell reverses as they're playing, returning their talent to awful, and Salem gets made miserable when he didn't do anything in this episode. This episode is what people think Sonic Underground is like without actually watching it. Most of it is just a lame kiddie song, rather than the song being a small, skippable part of the story. Although the stuff that happens in it is just the characters playing music or running from fans. The stuff we've seen a million times that has to happen as a result of the stereotypical plot where the main characters form a band. There's no point in the episode existing because it's just a cliche where Sabrina and Chloe have annoying bickering I don't care about. It sucks when the show keeps doing plots the sitcom did worse. Here, I'm expected to believe the spell can't be undone by them because they gave up their powers to be rock stars together for a few days, and they can't have reality go back to normal while their band is broken up. That's only there to force the episode to last longer, showing us how the characters would be as solo musicians. There's no way Sabrina and Chloe would become selfish like this and ruin what would have been a barely above average episode. That only looked good by this show's standards, because they enjoy the results of magic, until their own personalities ruin it. They do become awful to have a lesson that fame makes you a narcissist. But it's not really true because it doesn't always make you a narcissist. It wasn't necessary to teach that lesson to the audience. We know, and there's almost no chance a fan of the show would become a famous rock star. The sitcom did a better job by explaining that this only happens because of the magic stuff they ingested. But here, the ants aren't affected somehow when they're no better than them. It makes sense that the spell makes them lose their powers because when they're famous, it's still likely that mortals will see them use magic. And again, I assume the maker of the spell wants the users of it to be a bit punished for using magic so selfishly. And I have to assume the spell wears off after days because witches in charge don't want reality permanently altered by the whims of just a few witches. And don't see the harm in just a few days that will retcon themselves anyways. But it doesn't explain why the spell isn't extremely temporary regardless of whether they break up or not. When the show acted like all talent spells were temporary earlier. I don't blame the characters for using the spell. Both because it'd be fun, and because it's easier than Zelda coming up with their own rhymes to make that magic happen. And if she did that, she would have been able to reverse the spell instantly. It's out of character for the ants to be so lazy that they don't even want to come up with their own rhyming spells when they always did it before the TV show.